Welcome, everybody. I'm really glad everyone is here. My name is Anna Peters with College Recruiter. You might have seen a few emails from me. What you didn't know when you read my emails, you were supposed to read them in this really scratchy, croaky voice. I don't usually sound like this. I feel fine. I've been washing my hands all morning, so hopefully I won't get anybody sick. Good, I'm glad. So welcome, everybody. I'm really glad you're here. I'm excited for the day. It's going to be a fun day. We have an excellent lineup of speakers and panelists with really valuable insight into talent acquisition and university relations. So I think everybody here is going to learn something to take back. And we also have, in addition, we're live streaming this event. And we're expecting at least a couple hundred people watching online. So to anyone who's online, thank you for joining us as well. And just so everybody in the room knows that too, we have virtual attendees joining us. So before I was at College Recruiter, I managed and directed recruitment at nonprofits, actually, and I've recruited for regular staff positions, AmeriCorps service positions, if anyone's familiar. Yeah, a little shout out, and for volunteer positions as well. And I have never learned so much about managing people as I did when I was recruiting volunteers for an international youth exchange program, because I had to convince these people to contribute a significant amount of their time and effort for free. And they could leave anytime and they could underperform with no real consequences. And so I learned a lot about intrinsic motivation to bring these people in to want to work for me and to keep wanting to work for me. And so I think that emotional connection between your candidates, your employees, and your organization, I think that's going to come up today. I recently went back to school this is where you say, go, Anna. To pursue a master's. Thank you. Anyone who is failing to being a parent of small children, working and going to school, we understand. So I'm pursuing my master's in human resource development. And if you're not familiar with HRD, it is one part economics, one part educational psychology, and one part systems theory. And while I've been a participant and an observer of talent acquisition challenges and trends for about a decade, being back in academia has really reminded me of the importance of real research findings, of real results that point to something that works in HR, something that works in talent management. So I'm excited to hear all of your stories. What is working for you? How do you know it's working? What has not worked at all for you? And so on that point, I really want to make sure everybody knows that this is meant to be a fun, interactive day. So each speaker has 20 minutes and they will moderate a 40-minute panel. And that panel is really your chance to speak up, tell us what you're challenged by, tell us what your questions are. Don't be shy, you can shout out. With that, I really want to thank some very gracious and some hardworking people in the room. First, Dawn Carter, Director of Early Careers. And her team, where's her team? Yes. It's beautiful here. Thank you for being in California. Where I live, there's snow on the ground and it's 20 degrees, but I love it. It's beautiful here. The food is wonderful. Thank you for hosting us. Mark Wenzel, I'd like to thank our co-organizers at Shaker. Dr. Mark Wenzel will speak later today, and so you get to know him as well. Nice to get to know you as well. Mark, thanks for being our partner. And Kevin Grossman is our third speaker, and I'd like to thank him. We're very excited that you are here and looking forward to your deep insight. We will all learn, I'm sure, something from you, and hopefully you will learn something from everyone here as well.
That's why I'm here.
Yeah. Yeah, there are no experts. We're all just learners, right? And then I'd also like to thank Faith Rothberg, CEO of College Recruiter, and Rothberg, founder and president of College Recruiter.
Yeah.
I'm sorry you came second. college recruiter. Our team really believes that every student and grad deserves a great career. And our customers are primarily Fortune 1000 companies and government agencies who advertise with us their entry level, their part-time, their seasonal, their internships, and other entry level jobs. And we're especially good at helping employers hire at scale. So dozens, hundreds, thousands of entry level jobs. We do that really well. And I want to say our mission one more time, that we believe that every student and recent grad deserves a great career. And that key word is great, right? Because everybody in this room has great careers to offer. And don't ever forget what you're actually doing every time you make a hire. You're you're launching that new person onto a trajectory that will totally influence so much of their lives. And so collectively, when you think about that, this room has an enormous impact. So thank you for being here. One last note, while it would be prudent to keep your phones from ringing during the conference, so parentheses, put your phones on silent, please. No one will judge you if you have your phone out because we'll all be assuming that you're posting to Twitter, LinkedIn, or your other channels, something that you've learned, something that you've heard that is awesome. Please, when you do post to social media, please use the hashtag #CRBootcamp, and then we can see what everybody else is saying about the event as well. With that, I was going to introduce Don Carter, but I think Mark wants to say something.
Yeah, Mark's going to say.
Just real quick, and then I'll.
Then.
Good morning. Thanks for joining us. Steve and I started talking about this quite some time ago, it seems like. So it's so cool to be here today. I'm Mark Wenzel. I'm with Shaker. We're a group of industrial organizational psychologists. We're not the Shaker recruitment advertising that you might be thinking about. And we have somebody named Joe on our team as well. For those of you that know Shaker recruitment advertising, there's a Joe Shaker. So we get a little bit of brand confusion. But who here likes to take a test? Not many, right? That was our brilliant insight. So we built work sample simulations of jobs so that candidates could try their hand at the job instead of just giving up information. They learn about the job, they learn about the company. And so we do this for very high volume jobs for Amazon and Boeing and Walmart and others. So people get a chance to sort of have a two-way information exchange. And we'll talk a little bit more about engaging candidates and trying to give them information so they can make an informed decision as a consumer. So it's back to your point, Anna, about this match between people and jobs is really the same thing we're passionate about. We happen to do it from kind of a measurement side and a rigor side, but there's so much other stuff that has to happen for people to sort of find their passion, find their purpose. So that's where we play.
Okay.
Thank you.
So Don Carter is our first speaker. And Don, in the last few weeks, you have flown to, I think, London, maybe the East Coast. I don't know where else.
East Coast. So I'm going to sound like you, but this is all from a hackathon in how fabulous students wash their hands at a hackathon. So yes.
Okay.
Yeah.
But not hacking around like you're sick hacking.
No. We were just hacking at you.
So Don Carter is our first speaker, and she comes to us with over 20 years of HR experience in global talent acquisition. And your specialties, John, she specializes in university recruiting and diversity programs. She's done this for companies like Walt Disney Imagineering, Northrop Grumman, and Amazon and NetApp. Fun fact about Dawn, so all the traveling that she's done, she claims that she has visited and recruited from at least one college or university in every single state. I don't know if Puerto Rico's on that list.
Oh,
yet.
yes.
Is that okay, right?
Luckily, there were no cameras during that era.
Dawn has also been very active in NACE, the National Association for Colleges and Employers. And for those who aren't familiar, NACE has over 11,000 members who are either university career centers or employers, and they bring them together to discuss all things college recruitment. So Dawn has been she served on the board of directors and the executive board as past president of the association, and I'm sure would love to share about her experience at NACE too. So with that, Dawn is going to tell us about increasing recruitment and retention of women and other diverse candidates in STEM-related fields. Thank you, Dawn.
Cool, thank you. I'll keep the microphone. You'll see a theme in our presentations today, as we'll see if you can pick out the theme. Welcome everyone, and I apologize for what I have left of, I call it Y-Hack, 1,000 students, 150 schools, 36 hours of hacking. So, you know, those of us who go to hackathons, I totally understand. I'm really excited to be here. I'm really excited for Intuit to be hosting this event. You know, for us at Intuit, when we think about diversity, when we think about retention of female and other, you know, other kind of diverse candidates, for us, it's not just STEM, it's everything. And for us, it's, you know, our goal is to be first company to 50% women across the company by 2022 or 2021. So we're getting closer, but like every organization in the Valley or other organizations where we have facilities, it gets harder and harder to find that top talent and that top women talent. So today is around, this keeps going in and out. Today, can you guys hear me? Okay, we're gonna try without it.
Okay, there's one on the chair, Donna, if you want to try the other one.
Okay, let's try it. See, it keeps going on and on. I'll keep waving. Hello, it's on again. One of the things, you know, I always tell this to my team, what keeps me up at night, and these are some of the things that keep me up at night. And I put a difference of these around, and if you, I'm more than happy to share where these came from, because I don't think anything in our world is about hiding. It's all about how do you find the right information for your company and how do you share that with your leaders, because this is about telling a story. And some of these you think about is, you know, with NACE, employers plan to hire 4% more new college graduates. Anybody know what the top 2 majors have been in this country for the past 7 years? Anyone have an idea? Pick one.
Business.
What's that?
Business.
Yeah.
Business?
Liberal
Very
arts.
Close. Finance and accounting.
Okay.
What's the second one?
Liberal arts.
Computer science.
Oh, wow.
Past 7 years.
Wow.
So it's not going away. You still need finance people. They're just going to do different things, right? AI and machine learning and bots are all going to replace some of the stuff that they do today. That they're going to still need to do some financial parts of the work that they still do today. The one that kind of scares me the most is this one. This is around America U.S. high school students. Between 2012 and 2016, the percentage of students interested in STEM increased by 3%. Anyone scared about that? How many in here find it hard to find software developers? How many in here find it hard to find female software developers? How many in here just find it hard to find diverse candidates for their company? Okay. It is something to think about. What goes in at the top doesn't mean it's always going to come out at the bottom. When you look at what goes in as a freshman, high matriculation around sophomore year, we call it sophomore slump. Oh, we all have sophomore slump. They're at our companies about 2.5 years before they kind of want to leave and go away. They want a new opportunity on campus. 2.5 years is really that sophomore slump where you see a lot of students matriculating out of some of the harder majors with physics and maths and sciences. So you see a lot of schools and a lot of universities and a lot of partnerships of how do you get people through that second year? How do you make sure that they're matriculating out? So your funnel doesn't go from this to this by the time they graduate. This one kind of scared me. Probably, I had a little bit of scotch, so it probably helped. By 2024, I hope to win the lottery by then, so I'm like living on some islands. 1.1 million computing-related job openings are expected. At the current rate, only 45% of these jobs could be filled by U.S. computing bachelor degree. So first of all, we all have jobs. Those jobs around new college grads, early career hiring is not going away. Immigration, a little little challenging right now with this administration. If you read any news last night, it's getting more challenging because smart people bring smart spouses. Smart spouses may not be able to get a job soon. So those of us that hire the smart person and hoping to hire the smart spouse may have a challenge with that in the future. And that definitely will impact not only computer science and computer engineering, but it's going to impact data science, machine learning, biomedical, biosciences, all those social sciences too, where you still see that funnel kind of trickle down. And then growth in STEM talent is critical priority for organizations and is expected to increase 19% by 2018. So little math, 19%. For that is new college grads, that gets you down, and there's still not enough people in our universe to fill the jobs. And we have low unemployment rate in the Valley, right? And that is happening where you see high-tech boom cities, whether it's Austin or Seattle or New York or Boston or wherever Amazon puts their second campus. We have no idea what that will be, but that will impact recruiting. Think about it. They're going to pick a new city to put technical talent in, starting at 50,000 employees. That will have impact to every single person in this room. Because they will become, as I learned last night, 1 in 10 jobs are for Amazon. I know. I worked there, was 14,000 employees. It was awesome. You kind of knew everyone. Now there's almost 400,000 employees. So any thoughts on this, you guys? Any questions? This is what the talent looks like. Is this how it feels? How does it feel like for you guys on campus? Anyone want to raise their hand? Is this the challenges you guys are seeing in STEM or in your jobs?
You know, and this, she didn't ask me to ask this question. So.
Use are in a couple weeks.
But Don, can't you know? Where do you see companies actually starting to recruit outside of the four-year traditional universities? Like that's where I'm assuming, you know, all of these boot camp, technical boot camps, that's where do you see a trend where that's where we're gonna end up going?
I think you're continue to see a trend in boot camps. I also have a premonition in this country with this administration, we'll probably see apprenticeships come back. We've already seen this in the UK with the apprenticeship level program that was launched right before Brexit. So again, that impacts early careers, that both new college grad or maybe somebody who's been out of their career less than a few years. You know, in other countries, there's huge challenges. You know, the unemployment rate of a new college grad in Spain is like 35%. There are not enough jobs. And then all of these immigration challenges happen in EMEA, and you can't move talent to where you need it. And that's what's happening even here as we think about just different approaches to immigration with our administration. Again, it does put constraints on companies. You are going to have to look somewhere different, right? What are some of the jobs you guys have the most difficult time recruiting for? Anyone? This table? I'll start working on you. I like your hat, Cal. I'll forgive the Cal hat, but that's okay. Quinn, is that how you say it?
Quentin.
What's your toughest job you recruit for?
Oh, you asked the wrong person.
Oh, come on.
Yeah, I don't really recruit technical talent.
Doesn't matter. What is the toughest job you recruit for?
So we recruit all majors for entry level role. So it's not quite as technical as like an engineering background, but I don't know, I think it's just really a matter of finding like the top talent in a very small talent pool.
Nice. And what kind of roles do they get to go into?
You can help me out with this one.
Well, of course, engineering is tough
Yeah.
for us. It's very, very difficult because Walmart now has a new face.
Yeah.
So everything is new, and people are challenged. We are challenged. So that is difficult for us, definitely.
It is hard, right?
Yes.
Everyone in this room recruits technical talent. Doesn't matter if it's IT, machine learning, data science, aeronautics, whatever, every single person in this room, right, increases. If you hear things like the president say, I want to bring back the space program, and we graduate less than like 4,000 aeronautics engineers a year, that concerns me, right? If you want to rebuild these programs, restart these programs, you're going to have to look at different places to do it. I honestly think it feels like this. Some of us, you're going to see a theme today. But I feel like it feels like this. How many in this room go to Grace Hopper? Anyone want to share their decline rate? We will, but anyone want to share their, it's dismal, right? Your company spends $1 bazillion on a booth.
Yeah.
We spend $1 bazillion to send 100 women. We're on 14 panels. We do all those things. Anyone want to share what their decline or accept rate is? Ours is 50%. The average for Grace Hopper is 40 to 50%. Doesn't matter who you are, Apple, Amazon, Picket. These women walk out with 4 to 7 job offers.
Oh, yeah.
And how do you change that? How do you mix that? How do you get that? How do you get them to go, Walmart Paths is the best place to be? Or how do you get them to go, Intuit and FinTech is the best place to be? Or eBay or whoever? How do you do that? And we'll talk about that in a couple minutes, and we're going to share with the panel some of the great things that they're doing. But I look at this and I say that the funnel is not growing. So if the funnel is not growing, then we need to figure out how to widen the funnel. One of the things that Intuit did over the last 2 years is we're really, I call it agnostic recruiting, in the sense that we don't really care what university you went to, we just want the top student. And it has allowed us to hire 35% of our hires from non-core schools, over 78 different universities, 28% of them HBCUs, Hispanic serving institutions, and we did not even step on campus. Now, did we do it really well at first? No. Are we doing it awesome now? Yes. Do we still jump in the pool and make mistakes? Oh my God, yes. But it took us a long time to even get our executives to be like, they're not from Cornell or they're not from Stanford. And so this all-out war on talent also drives, immigration drives this. For every bachelor student that graduates with a computer science degree, computer engineering degree, I think last year they had like 3.5 jobs to choose from. And so if immigration tightens up, and then there's only 18% women in there, that hasn't grown. Maybe 12% underrepresented minorities, that definitely hasn't grown. We're all fighting over the same talent. And that has impact to total compensation. That has impact to our programs. What concerns me is that it's not just the Valley. Every single person is actually fighting for the talent. And so you have to look at a couple things. You have to look at what is your sweet spot as a company. You have those national partnerships for diversity. Do you have a regional partnership? Do you have a mixture? You really need to understand your mission in your company, and you need to understand who your customer is that you're trying to get through to know what those partnerships are going to look like and work like. We have a mix of both national, local, and college. So with national, we have MLT, Code 2040, Grace Hopper. On our locally, we have apprenticeship programs, Code Path, re-entry programs, and at our college core schools, we'll have women engineering programs, underrepresented minority programs. So we try and hit it at all 3 levels. But you have to figure out what works for eBay is not going to work at Intuit, and what works at Intuit, I'm sorry, I'm going to pick on you because you're on my left-hand side, may not work at Walmart Labs. So that's where you have to bring your data. And that's where I say getting key desperate empathy leads to what is most important to them, not as what is most important to your executives. You have to find the data. We just did an exercise this week on where's top talent for PhDs, because we're trying to expand our program. And literally, it's pretty dismal when you look at the number of women and number of schools. Does anyone in this room know the top school that produces the most computer science for African Americans?
Georgia.
Georgia Tech.
Georgia Tech. North Carolina A&T. Nope. For profit? DeVry.
Wow.
Are any of your companies gonna be willing to hire from DeVry? You've got to think about changing that. The other one is the University of Maryland College Park. 333 of them last year graduated with a bachelor's degree. Where did I get that data? Nice, it's super cheap. Every year I ask them, could you tell me every single college in the US that has computer science, bachelor's, master's, and PhD, how many men, how many women, underrepresented minorities, number of international students. It's fabulous. So an executive comes to me and says, well, I want you to go to my school. Great. There's nobody of interest of us that we need to do there. It's a whole bunch of guys. I think we have that channel figured out. And we're trying to build relationships with HBCUs. Is that really the right move? Are we going to go agnostic and think about how do you find the talent? Or are we going to be super different and go after DeVry and help them become data scientists? And that's how we have to change how we think. I look at this real quick around, we all have funnels. You attract, you nurture, and you convert. And nurturing STEM talent takes time, energy, money, and people. Getting talent out of the South to the Valley is tough. So how do you do that? Micro programs. Do I say that's the best way to go? I don't always say it is. But for us, we're able to flex and bow with our budgets when we have micro programs. So if we don't have a ton of money one year, we can ebb and flow with one group versus the whole group and cut something off. And so I think you have to think about your channel and your tunnel and what does that look like for you? And what does nurturing look like? We're doing co-path, we're doing boot camps, we're doing interview freshmen to help them be better for their sophomore year. We're looking at a lot of different ways to nurture our talent and build our communities. So before I bring up my esteemed panel, because they're amazing, any questions, thoughts, comments, ahas, holy crap? Yes.
So I love what you're saying, first of all, so thank you for sharing everything. I was just wondering, how are you tackling the Latino, Hispanic, or Latinx numbers? I previously worked at Twitter in the university space, and that was consistently the hardest one to get in terms of just numbers wise. And I think that it plays into the culture plays into not meeting, so they don't come to the Valley. And so I just wanted to know your thoughts on that.
So that's where you start thinking about your data. Think about,
Dawn,
yes.
sorry, would you mind repeating the question?
Thank you. And I told somebody I would do that and I didn't. The question I heard, I want to make sure I got it right, was with Latino and Hispanic talent, it is very hard to get them to come to us, whether that is wherever we're at. And so what we've learned is a couple things you have to think about is looking at schools that may recruit outside of their state. So University of Washington, God love them. When I worked in Amazon, I sat on a board of directors for education, and we went after high school students in California. What they would do is they would offer them the same scholarship level to go to UW as it would be to go to UCLA. So you need to find matriculation, and there's lots of websites out there. If someone reminds me, I'll find the website where you can look at high school students and where they're matriculating to. So if you think about University of Arizona, great school, half of their students come from California or New York, which surprised the heck out of me. New York students typically stay in New York. They have really great education system. Texas students will come up above the border, so it is hard to get them to come out. But again, some of those schools are recruiting more students into those areas. So you kind of have to start mapping out where the students are and what they are. And I can also, if anyone else wants to know the name of the report, I'm not talking to you, it's less than $750 to get it annually. And you can do it by any major you want with NACE. And they're super quick, so great question. Any others before I bring the panel up? All right, come on up, ladies. Woo! Let me go back to my favorite picture, this one.
There we go.
Exactly. So how this is gonna work is, I'm gonna give you guys one of the mics. Hopefully that's on, not on. And what I want to do is actually have them quickly introduce themselves. And then what I thought I'd do is open it up for questions right away, once you hear their backgrounds. And we also have questions that we already have prepped, just in case you all get quiet again, but I think the coffee is kicking in or something's kicking in. So if you guys could do some quick introductions, that would be awesome.
The coffee kicked in right below my badge.
Nice. That happens to me all the time.
I know, always when you're wearing white, right? I'm Cindy Reuter, I'm the CEO of Capstone Technology Resources. We are a contract and a consulting placement firm. We specialize in helping mostly global, large companies, who shall go unnamed, hire entry level up to professional level in technology, digital marketing, analytics. So we're often tasked to find the person that human resources having really a hard time finding, whether that's at the entry level or whether that's at a professional level.
Cool.
My name is Cindy Loggins, and I don't know that these are working.
It's not. It is working. Here, use this one.
There you go.
It is now. Turning it on helps. My name is Cindy Loggins. I'm currently with eBay. I head up the university recruiting and programs team. I've only been there for 3 weeks, so I'm brand spanking new, but my teammates in the room in case we want to dive in on that. I've also had an opportunity to work at Veritas Technologies, which is a privately held company, Amazon for quite a bit of time, and how Dawn and I had crossed paths. But also Adobe Systems and Pacific Gas and Electric. So I've got quite an array of experience. I'm looking forward to learning from all of you.
I'm Rachelli Materum. I'm the Vice President of Talent Acquisition for Macy's, particularly Macy's Tech, so our technical arm. Our offices are here in the Bay and in Atlanta. And I'm just really stoked to talk to this team about what we need to do creatively in the space, particularly how we bridge. My interests are how we're bridging a consumer brand like Macy's with kind of the tech challenges we have. And prior to Macy's, I was with Google and YouTube.
All right, so let's open it up for some questions first. Anyone have hot burning question? Come on. Yeah. Quiet. All right, I'll start with one. This is for Macy's and eBay. How over the years have the roles changed for your organization? What is that new role that you're recruiting for?
Sure. So we are doing a lot of digitization from a traditional brick and mortar into this kind of digital space. So we're seeing a lot of more roles around what we like to call omnichannel, which is new for us. I think we're pretty rooted in buyers and planners and store merchandisers and the sort, but really finding the expertise from a technical standpoint to bridge that even in our fulfillment areas. We are doing a lot of investment in space now in the AI and the machine learning, and we're exploring and finding out what works for us. So those roles are very different. And then even finding ways and opportunities to have leaders that own the space now get trained in some of these areas. So that's what we're exploring.
Where are some of those technical talent areas sit? They reside Cincinnati?
Great question. So the largest majority of those roles sit in San Francisco. And then I'd say about 50%, and the other 50 sit in Johns Creek, which is right outside Atlanta.
Okay.
Not to lean on my team in terms of what position specifically, but on the broader spectrum, we recruit for pretty much everything. Yes, we do dive into AI and data science. I would say the bulk of our hiring is on the engineering side. Our locations mainly in the South Bay, San Jose, but we also have Portland, Bellevue, New York. Did I get it right?
San Francisco.
San Francisco.
Brisbane, California, I should specify, not Brisbane, Australia.
Although I was hoping for Brisbane.
Right?
I think the interesting part for us, Dawn, is, and part of what you and I had talked about earlier, is that the university recruiting and programs function reports into the chief of diversity and inclusion. It is a very different lens that we have, and it's a fascinating one because not only do we have to execute on the numbers that we're being given in a variety of fields, but we are almost forced on a day-to-day basis to really think about things from a diversity and then inclusion. We have hired a ton of people. eBay has been around forever. We sometimes get noted as not the sexy company, so that's a big thing for us with being on campus and how do we rebrand.
Cool. All right, questions? I'm gonna take a pause between each one I have. Oh, yay.
Yeah, no, actually, that kind of goes into my question regarding diversity and inclusion strategy at your companies. Can you share a little more about what you're doing to try to reach a more diverse audience, be it, people of color or underrepresented minorities, rather, people with disabilities, veterans, any of those efforts around diversity and inclusion?
So the question, just in case you didn't hear it, is around what are some of the strategies that the organization is using to try and find those diverse talent pockets of people?
Great. So I can talk a little bit about our Macy strategy. So we have our chief diversity officer that reports directly to corporate communications, but a new role we introduced this year is a VP of workforce planning, just dedicated to diversity and inclusion. And she directly reports into our CHRO. So we actually have 2 points of accountability, one from an external affairs standpoint, and then one for really aligning internally with what does recruitment look like. Are we promoting the percentages appropriately in each of the regions? And the second strategy we typically follow is whatever markets the jobs are in, and it's easy for us to do this from a consumer perspective, is we need to look, our workforce population should mirror what our community is. So in Atlanta, we should assume that a certain percentage of leadership roles should be African American. In San Francisco, a certain percentage should be Asian American because it looks like our community. And if we're not seeing those represented, then we get to some problems. And we do that both from a sales perspective and also a workforce planning. So we have 2 points of accountability there, so that's huge. And then more recently, a lot of work done with our employee resource groups. So they are really tied into every single component of recruiting. So we'll go often to our Onyx ERG, which is our African American ERG in both Atlanta and San Francisco, and we'll vet, do we want to invest in NSBE this year? And if we do, who of your leaders will you bring and who will you sponsor? So we make a recognition. If we're sending someone, we make a big deal, we send an email. Brian Turner got nominated to be the attendee this year for NSBE and will be speaking. And so that way there's a recognition they give and get, both from a recruiting standpoint and also from a retention standpoint, that they're being recognized by the company.
Yeah, that tie back to these national conferences with your employees is really big. I see best in practice at many companies doing that, how you nominate your folks to attend them, how they get invited, how special they feel when they get there by the executives that attend. So that's a great best practice. Cindy?
Yeah. So a number of our clients are doing lightning tech talks to underserved communities, and in hopes that they can find students. But I'll give you a trick that we use internally. We go out to the parents because everybody knows that the students are being heavily recruited, and the students don't know what the brands are. They don't know, they may know QuickBooks, they might not know Intuit. Yeah. So we go to the parents when we're looking for resources, and we say we have this opportunity. Because most of my network are professionals that are working in engineering, and engineering folks produce other engineering folks. Apples don't fall far from the tree. So, when we're looking for a specific type of person, we'll target who are our underrepresented minorities in our database, send an email out saying, we have a client that's very interested in hiring entry-level folks for these positions. Do you know anyone? And through their social networks, through us posting and them pushing it out on their social networks, we're getting an influx of students that have been overlooked. Classic example, 3.695 GPA, didn't have the 3.7 GPA to get hired at Google or Amazon. UC Irving graduate, nobody's recruiting down at UC Irving apparently, and just got overlooked. Kind of a shy kid, not the kind of kid that's going to be, going to shine in a college career fair. Brilliant, And by the way, at the end of this conference, if you want a kid that's interested in AI or a student that's a liberal arts student that comes from two engineering parents, they're looking for jobs. I have them. Just come up to me. I'll send you their resumes. But the point is, you got to look farther than any traditional channel. So go to the parents, go to the social networks of the parents, because the parents care about these kids and want them to find work.
I'll add a little bit for eBay, and it's all about a learning time for us as well. One of the things that might seem normal to everybody else, but we've got customers, and so we want our customer base to mimic our community, and hence our hiring and who we have on the inside. And so a big push right now is how do we get Gen Z customers to want to sell on our platform. And that organization, the seller organization for us, is wanting to partner very closely with our team to figure out what universities can we go to. And it's not just the come sell with us because we'll make a buck off of it, but it's really getting into the communities of these underrepresented areas to say, we're going to teach you how to do that. Let's partner with the business teachers, the entrepreneurship teachers. Let us give you the skills to do that. Oh, by the way, you can do that all on eBay. But it really is a focus on what tools can we give you, what tools can we give the community to be able to do that, with the hope that then we get more Gen Z sellers, we're going to seem a little bit more attractive, and then recruiting will fall in line as well.
You know, I look back at this whole notion of prosperity of these students, right? Prosperity of, that's the number one thing they worry about, Gen Zers. They saw their parents lose 45% of their wealth. So their big thing is around, how do I become prosperous? And not only myself, but how does my family do that? And so I'd love to hear organizations like, eBay, Intuit, and I know there's others out there, they get into the student's life cycle, whether it's in academics or clubs, and teaches them just to be more prosperous in that way. So that's awesome to hear. I have a quick question. Raise a hand, how many of your organizations have a GPA requirement? Cool. Do you mind sharing what it is? Yeah.
3.0.
Oh, cool. And what organization are you with?
Striker Corporation.
Ah, very cool. You guys do cool stuff. I think every time when my grandmother's in the hospital, like, Striker bedroom Striker equipment. So, very cool. And for you guys, what do you have?
Our GPA requirement is 3.6.
Wow. How many in the room don't have a GPA requirement anymore? Okay. I want to put that in. Lots of studies out there. Took Google 20 years to get there, but I mean, it is like, what indication other than to thin your herd? If you're getting a lot of applicants, right? But it goes back to, are you missing talent, right? And for us at Intuit, that's why we wanted to open the funnel at the top as wide as we could, because we felt we were missing really top talent from schools we just may not have been able to go to. And so that's one of the reasons we took a step back. So as you're thinking about your funnels and you're thinking about how you get them through, sometimes at the very top, opening it up a little more and having some ways to thin that herd allows you just to diversify your talent pool. Yes, in the back.
I have a question of how that's played out with the hiring managers in terms of, if you have a student that maybe has a 3.0, does not go to a school, like, it's really smart, but maybe not on paper. And then you have like a Cornell grad, 3.9, like, quote unquote perfect students. Like, how do you manage that with your hiring managers? Because that's what's difficult, right? We know it, but they don't know it.
Eileen or Cindy, you want to talk about that? Because you guys are doing a great job at it. Okay.
Can I add to that?
Yeah.
So very similar. So in terms of the GPA requirement, everyone in the company knows it's not the best kind of judging criteria. So I think you mentioned earlier you had to get your leadership bought into the idea that we need to axe this type of thinking, this mentality. How did you also go about that?
So great. So we'll answer that. We'll answer that. So when I started my first week, I figured we were kind of school snobby, like 2 days in. Our CTO was like, we're not getting enough hires out of Stanford. Okay, let me figure that out. Been here 2 days. Wasn't hard to figure out. Probably day 4 wasn't hard to figure out. what we did was we did a persona exercise with our CEO and his staff. And I get to present or my boss gets to present on early careers to our CEO probably twice a year. And so what we did is we talked about millennials, and what those personas of students we wanted to hire. And we talked about students we passed up because of our snobby or our GPA requirement. And then we turned those people over in the organization, and it was our CFO, our CEO, and our CHRO. And it taught them just to take a pause and give us a chance to experiment. And when they saw the experiments working and the diversity rising and the number of women coming in rising and the diversity of thought happening among the teams and the quality scores of our hires going up, then it started to take. But it took us about 2 years to do that. So if folks that don't have a GPA requirement in the room, how are you guys managing expectations with your managers? Anyone want to share? Yes.
I have a question. It's not, so we asked the GPA, which is also 3.0 minimum. So when the companies that say that they're not considering GPA, does that mean you're not asking it at all in your applicant tracking system when they're applying?
Took that away.
Wow.
Not needed at all.
So how do
Well,
you,
then that goes back to what you're asking, your initial question, which is how then are you managing that? Because
Yeah.
we have hiring managers saying, great GPA, you should consider this person. So they're thinking differently then.
They are, and so that's how we had to flip the thinking, which was you have to look at skills and values of the job. So do you have dedicated skills and values for your jobs? We have a dedicated global process now to hire all of our engineering. We have trained assessors to hire those engineers. And it took us about 2 years to get there. Aina.
Yeah, and we have pool hiring too. So to Don's point, we assess against certain specific skills and values for software engineering. And we don't have hiring managers in the beginning. So we hire for so for example, we're gonna hire 200 interns across the US. The hiring managers don't get to see their candidates until we're ready to place them. Yeah.
Good questions. Other questions? I don't know if we answered your question in the back, but I will get back to make sure we did. All right, my little Star Wars friend.
First of all, this is super interesting, and I'm loving hearing about how, like, that outbound, how are you finding, where are you finding? What are you doing at each of your companies as far as what you're portraying? So how are you treating your job descriptions differently? How are you treating your career sites differently to speak to different audiences?
I'd love to hear from you guys on that.
So what are we doing? So many things. So it's funny that you asked
The
that question.
question was, since we're putting folks at the top of the funnels, right? What are we doing different, whether it's on campus or our websites or campaigns? Or what are we doing different to attract the talent into our communities?
So there's a couple of things, and it's the timing's great because we just actually experienced this week that we've been through our first unconscious bias training, which was very impactful. And some of the end results from that is when we actually sat with some of our hiring managers, we number one, re-looking at the job descriptions and looking at what is required versus what is a nice to have. And, there's 13 things on the job requirement. They only really need 3. And making sure that what we're portraying is not expertise in this space, but really something that will encourage particularly females to apply. As you know, females feel like they have to hit every single requirement to apply, where males only feel like they need to hit 60%. And so that way it opens up the attraction level. So that's one component. Even in, and that kind of a provocative piece we're doing, and I think a lot of companies are doing now, is actually taking the colleges and taking out the names of on the resumes. I know.
So we want to do that.
But we're not doing this with this. We're not doing this with everyone. So we have a captive VP who says, I'm all for it, let's do it. And that way we can pilot and see and learn our successes before we kind of bridge that out further.
You're gonna have to report back.
Yeah,
because I'm so excited about that. I'm trying. What system do you guys use?
For
your ATS?
Taleo.
Damn it. We're just moving to Iceland's, I'm like, can it do it?
So there's gonna be some pieces that we're going to have to do manually,
Okay.
until we can kind of get some integration points, but there's some new technologies, I think, in the next 2 years that are gonna allow us to take that out and turn it into a bot. And then the last thing that I'll add is, really, I go back to the ERG piece, test. I go back to the ERG and the benefits piece, and I think that's something that's lost in sharing with candidates, particularly our working families employee resource group, our women at Macy's resource group, and knowing that those resource groups have mentors and sponsors. So when you're coming and you're attracting and you're talking to these candidates, they know there is a place that you will be received when you enter. And whether that's a conversation, a sponsorship, that's been very helpful. And then the last thing that we've done, this is more of a plug for this company, is we signed with Fair Job Bus. Yeah.
Shut up. I love them.
Well, we just like literally signed the contract this week. But we found that our reviews on Glassdoor really were encompassing of both what was happening in the stores and on the technical front. But Fairy God Boss, we could actually talk through and talk about openly, like we have fertility benefits, we have extended paternity leave, maternal leave, and I think those are the places that get lost in the shuffle from reviews if you're looking to attract females. And so I think I'll also report back how that's like.
Oh, please do. Sydney with an R. You know, we've been talking a little bit about how you match students to the right manager and the leader. What are you seeing, you know, some of best practices out there in the industry or companies that are doing it right?
I just want to add something before I answer that question. I've got to add something to what you just said about being nurturing in terms of female students in particular. The Gen Z folks that we're working with and the millennials, they all want to know what benefits are available. They all want to know what is the career path. They all want to know, do you have a mentorship program? And in prepping for today, I polled some of our larger clients and said, what's working, what's not working? And then I polled some of the students that we placed. And so the female mentorship is critical of other females, whether you are Hispanic, Caucasian, it doesn't matter. You need a mentor. So if you don't have a mentorship program happening at your company, that is going to impede your ability to retain women in the future. Because the companies that have that in place, they're retaining folks. Secondly, oh God, I hate to bring this up, but one of the students I talked to brought this up. She's a computer science grad working in a very large company in the Valley. And she said there is still a masculine mindset amongst, and she sees it mostly when she's in meetings where there are very few women and there are a lot of men. And she said it's very pervasive. And she went so far as to say, I saw it in high school. I saw it starting about that sophomore year. It continued through college. It's now in the workforce. She goes, so I've developed strategies to be opinionated, to be strong. And she goes, and fortunately, I have a female manager who's backing me up and letting my voice be heard.
That's sponsor.
That is sponsor. And so then on the company side, the companies that I'm working with are saying, we've got a great mentorship program. We're actually helping women understand the roles and the opportunities for them. So it's not just mentorship about your job, it's mentorship about your career. So that touches some of the programs that I'm seeing.
That's great. Thank you very much. Appreciate that. We have like 3 minutes left in our rounds. Now all the hands go up. Really? Oh, lightsaber. Yes.
Awesome. So Dawn talked about that sweet spot. I'm curious to know for you guys, when you're on campus and you're talking to candidates or in any of these forums, what are your sweet spots? What are the things that you think are really drawing students into your company specifically?
I'm not going to talk as much about eBay because I haven't been there long enough. But you know, I think the thing is being authentic. We see that a lot with millennials and Gen Z. You know, don't talk about things you don't have. There's so many buzzwords that are out there. And this comment ties into a lot about, you know, do we look at GPAs? Do we not? Do we go to a Stanford? Do we not? When somebody comes up to you in line and really says, you know, I'm an astrology major, rather than rolling your eyes because we may not hire astrology majors, it's really to say, that's great, Dawn. What do you want to do with that major? talk to me about it, learn a little bit more about them, and I think that plays into the authenticity, and not make them feel like they are as much a cog in the wheel. And it is hard when 1,000,001 of us are at these events. But I think even at eBay today, we're really trying to hone in on who we are and what we have and what we don't have. And embracing the fact that because we don't have it, doesn't make us less than.
Yeah.
And it kind of is infiltrated across all different organizations, all different positions. One of the things I wanted to add to the comment about people who use GPAs and not, and it doesn't work for every company. And I look at John because we've both been in very similar types of companies. Companies like Amazon and even at Veritas, a privately held company, we found different ways to, whether it's pre-test assessments, online tests, not having hiring managers involved in terms of a one-to-one hiring, allows you to open up that funnel a lot more. A team that might historically hire PhDs only because they think PhDs are really, really smart might end up hiring a bachelor's because the bachelor's might pass the bar as equally, right? So it's figuring out what works for you, getting the executive buy-in, and then trying to push that through. So there's no cookie cutter approach, really, it's just what works for you guys.
All right, we have 1 minute left and you get the question.
Okay, thank you. Really fast
You
is,
can actually go to 10:40.
Oh,
So, yeah, so you have 11 minutes.
oh, we have 11 minutes, go.
Okay. Really quick, so if you have a tight shift, we're just starting with a diversity recruiting piece, bringing it into university recruiting. We can only do so much. So how are companies deciding what diversity segment to work with the most? Or how do you direct your resources? So by that, what I mean is, do you go and decide, okay, I'm going to work with women and veterans? Because there's so many diversity segments. You have so much of resource and you need to be able to measure your performance in all of these. How are companies deciding? Do you go with all diversity segments, whoever comes at you? Okay.
The smaller the team, the more narrow you need to go your first few years. Because that allows you to test and ebb and flow into that segment and really get to know that segment and really understand that community. And once you build that community and you understand at least that parts of it, then it's much easier to take it to a veterans program and just pivot a little bit. So I always say go deep with an area. If it's women, go deep there, right? And try and figure out what works for you. And do a lot of, if you're gonna sign a contract with an organization, find out, go to the last conference and look at some of the folks that attended and reach out to those companies that are your size. So you understand their pain points with that association. Because you could go and be competed against eBay and you're only hiring 2 and you're like, crap, we made 40 offers and we got 3 hires. To know that that's okay at a certain conference and be able to share that data with your executive just ties back to what you're trying to do. Any other inputs? Because I'm sure you guys.
The only thing I'll add on to that is, in finding that, I think it's also important with the one that you focus on is you find the champion who's going to help you on the executive level. For a long time, we were working on a 3 segments or underrepresented diversity, the Black and Latino markets, and then women in engineering. But unfortunately, we didn't have any VPs that were African American. So even though we were timing that we needed this, we didn't have a champion and a face to help with that. So all our efforts and resources might have gone there, but we couldn't do it alone. So if you can get that partnership at the front end, so you have a face and accountability at the C level, it makes that much easier. And also for crowdfunding, they can find something in their magical budget. I have an extra, $10,000 to sponsor a scholarship, where sometimes the HR budgets just don't account for that. So that's the first place I would start. And then once they see the success in the organization, then it'll start trickling until you can find that key leader that'll help you push it across.
Great. Question in the back.
So we have, my company's been around about 20 years. We historically have hired very senior level engineering. And so our internship program is coming out of the toddler stages or infancy stages into the toddler stages. And we are not converting. I'm having difficulty in getting executive sponsorship for this. And so we, spent a lot of time recruiting about 100 interns every summer, and then we're letting them go. And so I don't know how to move the needle. I'm continuing to build business cases, but I'm kind of stuck. And I have an opposite problem. I have a lot of amazing. We had 11,000 applicants for the 100 positions last year.
Who are you with?
Intuitive Surgical.
Oh, cool. And what type of students are you hiring?
STEM primarily. It's like 75%.
Everyone write that name down because she's not converting. Stays in the room, stays in the room. I'm like, what's your name?
So we do have phenomenal talent, and
Yeah.
it's just killing me to let them go.
There's a couple things to think about. When I first started 3 years ago, we were hiring 4% in college grads out of our net hires, and now we're at 28%. And so it took partnerships with leaders. It took our CEO forming a steering committee. It took us working with HR business partners to look at workforce planning and to actually look at our organization. We were kind of, instead of the pyramid being this way, we were kind of this way. And so when you start going back to who are your future customers and do they look like the people in the room? And you start having the understanding of how trends, how they're buying your products, how they're using your products. We work with a lot of small business self-employed group. So when you think about this next generation of building, micro companies and doing all these things, we definitely want to make sure they're prosperous in the work that they're doing. So I really think it's a partnership of HR, finding that executive leader, really understanding the data of your company. What's the average age of your STEM or your engineer? How many are going to retire? What does that look like? And then understanding the market of your competitors. So if you belong to CD or if you belong to this organization, none of us, it's not rocket science. What we all do is pretty similar. It's our just flavor of the special sauce. I'm not joking. I was like, okay, this is fun. So I got to know all my competitors, and then I built this Access database, and then everyone, I was probably way early on the communities, and then we would rehire them because we didn't know how to hire new college grads, and that's part of it. How do you carve out the jobs so that there's something cool and exciting for them to do? Questions? Oh, please, and then I'm gonna do you, and then you.
I just had a question about how do you have the conversation with, the stakeholders that you were talking about? Because I feel like a lot of the diversity talk right now is focused on women, right? So it's like people see diversity and equate it with women. And how do you present that to other groups, other diverse groups?
Great question. So the question is, how do you find those executive leaders that you can talk to or talking to around things outside what's in the news, right? Women right now is really in the news.
And like, what do those conversations look like?
Yeah. And what conversations look like?
So for us, again, because we report into the chief diversity officer, that side of our house handles a little bit more of that. But what they do is take a look at our workforce across the board, chop it up in a million different ways, looking at women, looking at African Americans, Hispanic and Latinos as well. They match that, they look at that compared to our customer base. And typically it's a business-driven view to say, as an example for us on the university side, they want to up the ante for Gen Z customers and the communities where Gen Z customers sit. And then they try to mimic that to our workforce. And that, from a data perspective, seems to be a pretty simple comparison of where we're lacking. We tend to have, ironically, and I learned this in my first couple of days there, heavy on the boomers. We have a lot of customers that are on the boomer side. So it's one of those, if we're trying to push Gen Z, but we've got a great boomer space, how do we make that mix? So our diversity team tends to focus on that. You can cut it look at, you know, your levels, you can look at regions, you can look at by ethnicity. I think the caveat though, and I know Dawn knows this really well, is folks that work on this data, it's highly confidential data. So you have to be really careful as to what levels you share that with. And so while data can help you with an argument at a hiring manager level, we can't just say we've got X percentage of African Americans in manager roles, because then you start to, especially if you're deficient in that area, you might go, oh, I know who that group is. And then you start to hone in on individuals, right? But if you can figure out a way within your organization to look at your workforce, and then depending on where you want to be from a customer perspective, you try to mimic it, it seems to be a step in the right direction.
The only thing I'll add to that is we, do the same. I think you actually have to share the numbers. It's only when we actually put the numbers at a town hall and say, here are, and we just did kind of broad strokes on the large percentages, and then, they look at the diversity groups, and they look around the room like, oh my gosh, you're right. And it's just the awareness. And that was a really uncomfortable conversation to have with my boss to say, hey, we just need to put these numbers up so they know what the measure is. Like, oh, we can't do that. I'm like, well, why not? And that's I think the first starting point. We've done, and this again, I tie a lot of this work back to the affinity groups and the employee resource groups, just because they're so rooted and passionate around this space, is you can identify some of these key leaders, and these key leaders will emerge when there are, I think, what's happening in current events, if you can leverage those employee resource group events. So for example, two of the large town halls or the coffee and conversations that we had were, we did one on DACA, we did one on Black Lives Matter, and we did what it's like to be Muslim in America. And they were all sponsored by the employee resource groups, and they were separate. And sometimes you can get an outside administrator to kind of help facilitate so it doesn't feel so steamy. But it was an open, safe forum. And then afterwards, the leaders will say, what can we do? How can we help? And that's when you'll find these leaders who want to emerge and understand that they have a responsibility and a want a responsibility. And through that, we've got a couple engaged leaders to help with these other spaces outside of females in tech.
I also think sometimes starting with that person who struggles with your team the most, because if it's around finding the right data and the right people, they may be super passionate around helping you to grow that area and find that expertise. So sometimes even looking beyond the folks that are 1000% supportive and looking at the folks that maybe a little bit more curmudgeon in your areas to help you find that talent. All right, I saw a hand over here, but I won't go back. All right, you're next.
I have a question regarding referrals. I know a lot of companies struggle with, making sure that the referral process is done in a manner that creates fairness amongst candidates. So what are some creative strategies you've seen or heard of within the companies you've been at regarding the referral process? I know one thing I heard that was a cool idea is a company having the hiring team interview multiple candidates before, in addition to the referral, before they can make a decision versus just automatically going with the referral. So is that something that you've had issues with, or do you have any creative solutions around, how to create more fairness amongst the referral process?
Our executive referrals were a little crazy, and then I think our teams felt they had to hire them. So we created a concierge service. So anyone that's a director above is an executive at Intuit. So any referral goes through one person, Cindy. So if we have a break, you can always talk to her. She does an in-depth conversation. And then depending on if they're PD, she'll own them. If they're not, she'll push them to the other group globally. What we don't tell the teams anymore is that they're an executive referral. So when they're interviewing with those teams, we no longer tell them that an executive referral. So we feel like we're getting more unbiased, like, oh, Oprah told us to hire the person from Marshall University, right? We're hiring really good talent, and we're letting go of good talent that's just not a fit for Intuit. Macy, do you guys do anything? Or anyone else out in the audience doing anything good?
I can have a, go ahead. No, go ahead.
So to build on that, companies giving referral bonuses for intern referrals
Yes,
also?
we do both interns and new college grads.
Okay, so it's just the cash?
You only get it once.
Okay.
You don't get it like, if you get it, you only get it as an intern, you don't get it if it converts to a new college grad, so you only get it once.
Okay. Anyone else?
Historically, I'm not quite sure what it is at eBay. I don't think we do referrals for interns. At my other companies, we've not gotten referral bonuses for interns, but if they got converted to full-time,
Right.
then they did. I laugh at Melody's questions because we're getting bombarded by employer referrals at eBay. I think the key in my work experience is it involves a little bit more of a high touch with the person that is giving you that referral. What I want to believe is that they don't necessarily want you to find a job for them. They want to make sure that they are the individual being referred is being given due diligence, right? So to John's point, maybe having a point person on the team, call the person, it's that high touch. But I also think on the reverse side, making sure that you're connecting with the person, the executive that's referring them, and educating them on this is what the process is going to be. Because I find half the time they think the referral went into a black hole when in reality it didn't. Additionally to that, I think if the recruiting team can be super clear on what the criteria is for the jobs that are open, because I've had numerous times where I've gotten referrals for somebody that is a freshman or a sophomore that's a bachelor's, let's take the astrology major, no offense to anybody that was in this room or might be, and they expect them to have an engineering role. It does apples and oranges, right? To say, that's awesome, John, thank you so much for the referral. I'll reach out to check out what Cindy might be interested in, and then we'll make sure that, we'll keep you posted, right? So connecting with them, making them understand the process, the high touch for the candidate, but also looping that executive back in. So again, maybe the best practice is trying to have someone that's dedicated to do that.
One last question and we're wrapped up.
This kind of goes back to that, but like, I feel like sometimes I have referrals that are like, hey, give this person a call. And then I have referrals like, hey, we're looking forward to interviewing. I mean, we're looking forward to seeing you, seeing you next summer for an internship. Before I even talk to them. So how do you change your leadership's mindset when it comes to that?
We have a little bit of both of that. I think one is the education and having a process. Now they all know Cindy. They used to send everything to me. Now they copy me and send it to Cindy, which is awesome. But they know she has a process. And they know usually when I email them, like, hey, don't forget to kick off your process. She totally does. And she follows up with multiple interviews and multiple conversations. So I think part of it is having those skills and values for those roles and knowing that you have a dedicated interview process, because it allows you to push back on those executives, be like, thank you very much for the referral. We'll make sure they get into our, interview process, or, I don't even say interview process anymore. I say into our process, because that could be a coding challenge. It could be another online sales challenge, and they may not even make it through that. And so I try not to use the word interview as much as possible. All right, we are done. Thank you all very, very much. Thank you.